The two diagrams at the bottom represent pumps, and we have flow going into the pump, and then the flow coming out is represented on the left by that blue arrowed wiggly line, and it's a bit like a fountain. The total height of the fountain would be up to the maximum potential energy, in other words Z1, or height times by g, acceleration due to gravity. And if instead of having the pump pumping vertically upwards, we were to have it horizontally and put a valve on the end of it, not necessarily fully closed, but certainly one that we can open or close, then that would generate a certain amount of pressure, or pressure head, on that discharge side of the pump, which we could measure by the manometer, which is shown there in blue on that right hand diagram. And again, that would be a certain height of liquid that would represent the pressure in that line. This is a well-known effect where we put a glass into some water, fill it full of water and pull out, but don't let any of the water out. The water doesn't drain, it stays there as a column. There's a vacuum stopping that water coming out at the top, but if we just slightly raise the glass, then air can come in to fill that vacuum up, and therefore it discharges. And this is how we're going to illustrate exactly the same principle with some experimental equipment, which includes a staircase that goes up just slightly less than 10 meters in height. And what we're going to do is take a tube of water all the way up that staircase, and here's our other piece of the experimental equipment, the bucket of water with the vacuum gauge, and we start it at the bottom of the stairs, and that plastic tube at the bottom of the vacuum gauge is full of water, and as we raise the gauge you can see that a vacuum is starting to be registered, and we've taken it up one of the flights of stairs. You can see that's just a single flight of stairs, and the next flight we're now up to about 0.4 of a bar in vacuum, and we're going to go up another flight of stairs. We're just slightly over 0.6 of a bar at that flight, and then at the top of this staircase available to us we're now at just under 0.8 of a bar, and that is just slightly less than 10 meters in height. So in theory it should be a higher vacuum than that, but obviously we've had a bit of vaporization so that we're not pulling a perfect vacuum from that column of liquid. That's the total height of the stairs, just illustrated there. And this is the staircase, Department of Chemical Engineering at Loughborough University. So all we simply did was take that tube, which was sealed, it had water in, sealed at the top by the vacuum gauge, and we just took it for a walk up the staircase and measured the vacuum that induces on that vacuum gauge, and it was about 0.8 of a bar. So if we think back to this diagram again, concentrating on the diagram on the right, instead of having the manometer on the pump discharge, think about what happens on the pump suction side. Obviously now, instead of a pressure, we've got a vacuum on that suction side of pump. You could imagine the pump situated at the top of the stairs, and the implication there is that it's possible to cause problems for the pump by having a vacuum on the suction side, and that's what net positive suction head's all about. It's trying to ensure that we don't have cavitation or bubbles forming on the suction side of the pump due to a lack of pressure, due to either trying to pull up from too high a distance or even friction loss through the fittings on the suction side of the pump.